Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Movie Battlegrounds. It's been a while. We've had a couple exhibition stuff going on, but we are back. And not only are we back, we're in a tournament. This is bracket one of the Snowdown. Don't ask me what that means, but I'm sure someone knows. Um, Anyways, this is bracket one, and we have two great competitors. We have Eros competing
Hi,
against Michael. Eros, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, last time we saw you, you came up with a win. Are you
Yeah,
riding some momentum right now?
the first one. Yeah, I hope today is gonna be my second one.
All right. And then Michael, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, thanks. Yeah, just sort of looking forward to getting back into this. I haven't done a debate in a little while, so should be good.
All right. And are you ready to take Eros down?
I mean that's the plan, but we'll see how it goes.
All right. Well, we have these two competitors, very confident. They both think they're going to win, but one of them is wrong. So let's find out who is wrong. Um, But you know what? I'm not the only one making these decisions. I have two other fantastic judges with me. I have right below me is Kevin. Kevin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. It's my first time being a judge and looking very forward to it. Um, just looking forward to hearing what these guys have to say and hoping to learn some stuff as well. And you guys will have to overlook my little cold I have going on here.
All right, all right. And then our third and final judge, and they say the best for last. I don't know if that applies here. Our third judge, Mr. Tony Heel. Tony, how are you doing today?
Hey, how you doing? Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. This is a match between two people that have got quite a bit of experience in leagues, and this is going to be an interesting match. Like two completely different dynamics in terms of locations and personality. So I think this is going to be absolute cracking.
All right, well, then without further ado, let's get this match started. First, I do have to go over the rules because we are changing stuff up a little bit. The biggest thing is the point format. We are reducing it to the first person to 3 points, which means we have four questions for you that have been predetermined. Y'all have known beforehand, y'all have studied for. Um, with these questions, you get 90 seconds opening. Tell us what your pick is. Tell us why that's your pick. Do not tell us anything about the other person's pick. They will do that in their 90 seconds. Then we have a 5 minute free form where it's just the two of you fighting each other, but with words, not fists. That's not nice. 5 minutes pretty much telling us why yours is the right pick, why theirs isn't, and then we will have a 60-second closing. Each competitor does get a 1 minute extension to use whenever you want. Any of the four questions. It can only be used in the opening or the closing. We're not adding it to the free form debate. So just the opening and closing. And if you want to use it, please let me know before I start time. Because if you don't, I will not let you use it. Four questions. If we need to, we do have one speed round. If we need to go to the speed round, I will explain that more in depth.
It's round where we all do speed and then you talk really, really fast. It's hilarious.
Yes. Pretty sure there's a card game involved, but well, anyways, I think
Someone
that's
loses a
everything.
testicle. It's weird. Super Af is a weird man.
Eros, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Michael, are you ready?
Yep.
Kevin, are you ready?
Ready?
Tony, are you ready?
No, give me like half an hour. Bye.
Okay. All right. I'll give you about 7 minutes. So, and then I'll need you to be ready.
Fine.
And then Jacob, are you ready? You're not answering, so I'm going to take it as a yes. All right, let's get this show on the road with question number one. Question number one, in the category of horror, what is the best year of the horror genre? So I'm looking for 1 year, the best in the genre. Michael, I'm going to start off with you. You get 90 seconds. Time starts when you start talking.
The year I'm going for is way back in 1931. Because I think there's a few different things you think of when you think of horror. There are certain particular subgenres of horror which I think are particularly iconic. I think one of the most iconic are the Universal Monsters subgenre, and 1931 was kind of the big year for that. That was when they brought out some of their big hitters. You had Dracula, and you had Frankenstein, and you had Jekyll and Hyde, all come out in the same year, all making their big screen debuts. You have iconic takes on those characters, particularly Boris Karloff as Dracula. I just don't think there's another year which has three of the most iconic figures in horror all debuting in the same year, which is why I'm saying that 1931 is the best horror year.
All right, so Michael with 1931. All right, now Eros, it is your time for the 90-second opening. Again, tell us your pick. If you want to go in depth, you can, or if you want to wait for the 5-minute freeform, you can. 90 seconds is on the clock. Time starts when you start.
Can you guys hear? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So my pick for the best year for horror is actually 2018. Horror is one of the most my most important subgenre in horror is psychological horror films, and 2018 was the best year for that, and it succeeded by bringing us real great successful films. Plus, the year was not just good for psychological films. We got some incredible remakes, some trademark films, and some good World War II films, some good fantasy films, some good body horror films, and a lot of good foreign movie films. And one of the most popular horror film ever to date now, Hereditary, which made one of the highest grossing debut in horror, and all of these films got released in 2018, and that's why I choose that year. I can see my time.
All right. So we have Eros with 2018, Michael with 1931. We're going to open up to that 5-minute freeform, but before we do, there's one rule that I forgot to mention, and that is the timeout rule. Pretty much, this 5-minute freeform, we want to be kind and courteous to each other. Make sure everyone gets their own time to speak. But if you are talking over each other and not letting the other person speak, I will call timeouts. With that, it's time starts whenever you actually stop talking, and you get 10 seconds off the clock. So you will lose time. Please, if you're talking and the other person needs to start talking, please let them. We are trying to beat one another, but we are trying to be nice. Okay, so 5-minute freeform. What is the best year of the horror genre? Time starts whenever whoever starts.
So the thing with last year for 2018 is, as you said, kind of for start, it wasn't its own year of horror. It was very heavily reliant on sort of big remakes, which was kind of just copying ideas that have happened in previous years of the horror.
What big remakes? We didn't have a lot of big remakes, and the big remakes that we got were actually excellent and got received well by the reception and made a whole lot of money, and were actually fans. I'm talking.
Halloween was a remake of a film that's been done
exactly,
at least 10 times before, and it is essentially the same film.
One of the best ones, and it's critically known to be like one of the most beloved, even by the Halloween fans. And it's really hard. And you see that most of the remakes that they made on Halloween were bad, but this one was actually really good.
There's a low bar for Halloween remakes, which is why it's considered one of the better ones. It is essentially Halloween all over again.
This one actually had a high bar. That's my point. Once the film got announced, and the directors and the whole cast, everyone was really they were really looking forward to it. Plus, it even premiered at TIFF. Everyone was really looking forward for that film, and they had high expectations because of the trailer. The trailer was amazing, and the film turned out to be even better than what was shown in the trailer.
It was just Halloween, though. There wasn't anything that special about the film. The other remake we had, Suspiria, was actually quite polarizing.
No, we got Suspiria, which is to me the best film ever made, because I'm a fan of the original Suspiria, and I was really looking forward to that one. And that one was even better than anything I could ever imagine. It's, for me, one of the greatest films, and it's a psychological horror film.
It was very polarizing. It's not.
It's divided. It's a device film.
it's divisive. It isn't it isn't
It's
beloved
divisive.
as such. In the
But
same way that in 1931 you
horror
had
is literally one
three.
of the most divisive genre, and that film, it's actually a film that shows a lot more. It gives audiences both. It's for some, it's for a sort of audience. It's for cinephiles mostly. It's a film more artistic and everything. But that's not just my only point. The thing is, this one was an excellent psychological horror film, and that year we didn't just have Suspiria as of psychology. We got Hereditary, we got Annihilation, we got Climax, we got The House That Jack Built, we got Luz, we got Lords of Chaos, and we got The Little Strangers, which were all amazing films that were actually praised by the audiences. And
The Little Stranger is really, really boring. Annihilation is a sci-fi film, not a horror film.
It's a sci-fi.
To your point, I just want to...
It's not a sci-fi, it's horror too.
If I can go back to one of your points, you said horror is a divisive genre. I don't agree with that. If you get a good horror film, it has a standing legacy. That's why I picked 1931, because it picks out characters like Dracula and Frankenstein. These weren't divisive characters. These are characters
in 1931. The thing also is that Frankenstein isn't even the best film in its whole franchise. The Bride of Frankenstein is much better and is much more remembered than the original Frankenstein.
But you don't get that if you haven't got the groundwork that's been laid before it, and Frankenstein lays down the groundwork. The fact that 1931 was such a big year and showed that these universal monsters could stand on their own right allowed for a film like Bride of Frankenstein to even exist in the first place, whereas 2018 is the other way around. It's the recipient of better films laying the groundwork. Argento's Suspiria allowed...
You still have original projects that haven't been made, and as well as foreign. You have Lords of Chaos, were original films that introduced us to a whole new thing that we've never seen in horror. And to make a good film in 2018 is way harder to make a good film in 1931, because everything's been made before. But 2018 introduced us to a whole panel of new good flicks. Mandy was something we've never ever seen before. Lots of films like that. And for Dracula in 1931, I mean, that film is actually kind of a copy of another film that copied the original story. But Dracula wasn't as good as Nosferatu was. Nosferatu was a better version of Dracula, and Dracula was
Dracula's the one that's had a far bigger impact. Like Dracula is so much more of a name now. It's more about
the name is more recognized because of the book, but the film itself, people tend to forget it and prefer.
Everyone knows about Boris Karloff's Dracula, I think. It's also worth pointing out that in 2018, we're kind of forgetting how many bad horror films came out that year. The Nun, really bad. The Strangers, really bad. Slender Man, really bad. 1931 is just a purely positive year for horror film.
You have four films. You have 13 films and small projects. I have 1,000.
I don't think all of your films are that good, though. And some of them are based on things that have happened before. They've had the groundwork set
and you had some great original Netflix films too. Cam, Apostle, Protection.
Time. When we see that red banner, we must stop talking, because everything we say afterwards, we're not listening to. All right. So pretty good first question. Now we are going into our closing. So now you have 60 seconds to sell us on why your year is the best. Eros, we're going to go ahead and start with you on this closing. 60 seconds, tell us why 2018 is better than 1931. And of course, time starts.
In 2018, not only were their films better, but actually we got better performances that will be known forever, films that will be known as instant classic and will be remembered even more than Frankenstein and Dracula, even though they were horror movie icons. We have Hereditary, who will be known as one of the greatest horror film that has ever come out. We got one of the greatest performance that most people adored by Toni Collette. Also in Suspiria, we had Tilda Swinton, who played 3 characters with a whole new panel of incredible makeup, and her performance will be known. We had Climax too. Climax, who was a film that's an actual nightmare, something we've never seen before, with a lot of camera work. And it's a new trademark for Gaspar Noé, who came back with that film. Same for Lars von Trier, who made The House That Jack Built, a long-awaited film that since Lars von Trier took a long break, but with this one he came back with something incredible with Matt Dillon delivering an amazing performance. And we have Luz, who's gonna be known as one of the.
Time. All right. Now, if we can get Michael back up here. Again, 60 seconds. Tell us why 1931 is the best year for horror. And hopefully Tony does not cut me off this time, so I can finish my sentence. 60 seconds. Time starts when you start.
Yeah, Hereditary is a good original film, but then everything else is based on films that have happened before. You need to include the fact that you've got all these bad films, The Nun, The Strangers, Slenderman. How can the best year in horror be because of Slenderman and The Nun? That's absolutely ridiculous. We're talking about things like Toni Collette will have a bigger lasting impact than Frankenstein. That is pure speculation. There's no way we can say this at this point in time. I don't think a lot of these films are as popular as Eros is making out. The House that Jack Built is very divisive. Suspiria is very divisive. Climax is very divisive. These are polarizing films, not films that will be steeped in iconographic status for years and years to come. I think there's probably one film on his list that holds up as being genuinely an original, excellent film, and that is Hereditary. Everything else is either remakes, so it's come before, the groundwork's been set by a previous year, or it's divisive, or it's just flat out bad.
Time. All right. Very good first question. And it is up to the judges to find out who is taking this first point. So, Tony, I'm going to go to you first. Please tell us, who is getting your point and why?
Pretty easy for me. I think Michael did a much better job of not only explaining why 1931 was a stronger year and more impactful, but also, first I'm going to take the time off. I keep forgetting to do that. But also why 2018 wasn't as good as what Eros was selling. Because I don't think Eros really explained why 1931 was as good. He just kept trying to defend.
All right, so Michael's getting your vote.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin, who is getting your vote?
All right. Eros made a lot of good points that 2018, while I'm a huge fan of psychological horror, you brought up a lot of good points while you kept saying the World War II horror, the body horror, bringing up Hereditary and how it was the highest grossing horror. I don't like how you waited so late to bring up Luz, and you waited until I noticed the time was 12:53 until you even brought that up. It's just and Suspiria same way. There was 247 left in the 5-minute round. So going to Michael, the 1931 thing, that was a good pull. I wouldn't have even thought of that, but Universal, that I think that really set them off as far as their horror genre, but the use of Karloff and you made a lot of really good points, really good rebuttals against what Eros had to say. So I got to give it to you, Michael.
All right, and so with that, Michael takes the first point. And now we are on to question number 2. And question number 2 is, if you could erase one Terminator film from existence, which should it be? And we are adding a little caveat to it. Please explain how it helps in redeeming the franchise. So I want to know what the movie is, why you're wanting to erase it, and how it's going to make the other ones better. Michael, since we started with you first, we are going to go to Eros for the first opening. So Eros, 90 seconds to tell us your answer and explain yourself. Again, time starts when you start talking.
So when I think about Terminator films, there's one I cannot erase from my mind, is Terminator Genisys, and how horrible that film is. I believe that it could be erased from existence, and it actually should be, because that film is goddamn garbage. Not only does the film doesn't make sense and tries to bring back a whole plot that has actually been done in the last Terminator franchise, while bringing back landmark characters, but actually um, making them really bad, making them really look bad with horrible performances, and some bad CGI. Everything is actually forgettable in that film, and the plot doesn't really resolve towards the whole franchise, since it's something that could have easily been left over, and no one would have actually asked any question about the plot in Terminator Genesis, and it doesn't really make any big connections to the whole franchise whatsoever, and it's really hated by most people, and it came out in 2015, and no wonder it took 4 years to make a sequel to it.
All right, Michael, it is your time. If you could erase one Terminator film from existence, which should it be? 90-second opening. And again, time starts when you start talking.
So this is quite an easy question in a sense, because after Terminator 2, everything went so rapidly downhill. You have essentially a free choice. I'm going to say that Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines is the one that should be erased from the franchise. And the reason I say that is because that was the golden opportunity of the franchise. We all talk a lot about big trilogies in Star Wars is obviously the original Star Wars trilogy being a particularly big example. And what a golden opportunity after Terminator and Terminator 2, both widely regarded as two of the best sci-fi films ever made. You have a golden opportunity to make one of the perfect trilogies. It's so rare you get a perfect trilogy. And Terminator 3 is not that film. It's another confused, jumbled attempt at trying to keep this franchise on its feet. It doesn't particularly work. It commits the ultimate sin of just sort of scrapping Sarah Connor without giving her any sort of legacy status. It just bins her off and says, oh, whatever. It doesn't introduce an interesting character in her place. Claire Danes plays someone. It's a wasted opportunity, and that's why I think it needs to be taken out so that opportunity can be taken again.
All right, and stopping right at time too. All right, so now we are moving on to the 5-minute. Again, please tell us why your answer is correct and your opponent's question is incorrect. 5 minutes, open debate. And again, time starts when y'all do.
I mean, Terminator Genesis is no way as good as Terminator 3. And that's just for starters. That's just as far as erasing the film. I think everyone would actually prefer Terminator Genesis to be erased from existence. That film literally brought down the whole franchise, which was already not so great after the third and fourth one, but this one completely destroyed the franchise. No one wanted to hear any news about any new Terminator films or anything. That's why even the new one that came out 4 years after Terminator Genesis is still getting backlash for being made, because Terminator Genesis was so bad that no one would actually want to see a new Terminator film again. And as far as Terminator 3, it not only was the film actually way better than Terminator Genesis, it made more sense and actually had its own place in the whole franchise. It had a great plot that actually made sense towards the whole franchise. It introduced us to new Terminator, to new machines, and it introduced us to a whole new identity of Skyline and something really much stronger. And it had some plot holes, that's for sure. No movie has no plot holes, but this one it still did its best to handle them as good as best as they could, and they handled their plot holes way better than Terminator Genesis, which basically just relied on its CGI, which actually was pretty terrible too, and it didn't bring nothing to the whole franchise whatsoever.
So really, the point I'm getting at is, Terminator Genesis, as you kind of alluded to, by the time it came out, the franchise was already sort of coming down. If you erase Terminator Genesis, fine, it isn't a particularly good film, but it doesn't really change anything. You've still got two squalid sequels. You've still got a dying franchise. You've not really changed anything. Terminator 3, the plotting is really forced. It's all a bit, none of it really needs to happen. Oh, we've stopped Judgment Day. Oh, let's just throw another random Sky thing. Let's just make the whole last film essentially pointless, which in itself is not really very helpful. Let's get rid of the icon of the franchise in Linda Hamilton and Sarah Connor. Again, kind of a really shit thing to do. But the point is, if you erase Terminator 3, suddenly you have that opportunity again to make a good, perfect trilogy. Whereas Terminator Genesis hasn't. You've taken it out and you've not changed anything. You've still got to deal with
the thing is
downhill spiral. And Dark Fate still isn't going to feel like an anticipated movie because it's following Salvation, which is also a very bad film.
You keep on playing like on the perfect trilogy, but like you have to accept the fact that these films were made, and the question is basically which one could we remove that wouldn't actually affect any of the other films that are about to come out. And I mean, Terminator Genesis, it adds up nothing. They're just trying to make the same story over again in a different way with different villains. Plus, you talked in the third one that the bad thing, one of the worst things in the film was the fact that Sarah Connor just disappeared. But I think that fans didn't mind much about that as much as they minded that the fact that in Terminator Genesis, spoilers, John Connors is actually a robot and he's there to destroy them. He's the actual villain. That was terrible. Some people loved the villain, but the fact that it was John Connor, it made it terrible. It made no sense. It was just...
The point is that it wasn't John Connor. It was a Terminator robot disguised as John Connor.
Sure, but the fact that they used the name and they tried to bring us all the way towards that, I mean, even if they say it's not John Connor at the end, that's a really, really bad plot twist. I mean, it's just random out of the blue. Just one.
That's just the Terminator thing to take a character and reverse it. It's what they did with Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator in the second film. They turned him from the villain to the good guy.
It actually works, and you get a great performance.
So they have precedent for trying something similar again.
Genesis, not a single person acts well. Not a single one. They're all terrible.
I think Jason Clarke's okay.
Oh wow, no, he's crazy worthy for me. I mean, for me, Emma. But even in Terminator 3, I mean, I'm talking about plot twists, and Terminator 3 had an excellent plot twist. The fact that the whole Skyline core was actually a fallout shelter, and that the Skyline happened was actually really
again. I think that was one of the forced elements of the film. That it was kind of a stretch to get to that situation. Skyline was supposed to be sorted by this time, and they've just brought it back in any forced way.
The franchise didn't have some
time. All right. So now we are going into our 60-second closing. Again, tell us why your film should be erased from existence, but also what it does for the franchise. Arrow, since we started with you, we're going to start with Michael for his closings. So, Michael, 30 seconds. And again, time starts when you start talking.
I appreciate everyone has issues with Terminator Genesis, fair enough, but take it out of the franchise, nothing is really any different. You've still got to deal with the downward spiral. It's already happened by that point. It didn't really matter. Terminator 3, everything was on the up and up. Terminator was iconic, one of the greatest sci-fi films. Can they do it again? Yeah, they can do it bigger and better. Terminator 2 is perhaps even better, and suddenly you're in an upward spiral. Well, now you can end it on a high. You can reach a Star Wars level of acclaim. What do? They kill off one of the heroine, one of the few heroines we had at that time, which is a stupid thing to do. And they made a weirdly forced film which rendered parts of the second one completely irrelevant, and they just missed that opportunity. You take it out, you can put a good one back in, you can make the perfect trilogy. You've got Terminator.
Time. All right. So now, Eros, it is your turn. Again, tell us why your movie should be erased out of existence, but also how does this redeem the franchise? 60 seconds, and again, time starts when you start talking.
My film Terminator Genesis is known as one of the worst sci-fi that have came out in recent years. And I think every single person on this earth that actually has a brain, sorry if I'm insulting anyone, but wants this film to be out of the image, doesn't want to see that film ever again. It's one of the worst watches I've seen in my whole life. The visuals are terrible. They try to put the intelligence in the film is goddamn horrible. The performances aren't great. They're super bad, and the Arnold Schwarzenegger cannot carry this film. He cannot do anything. Yet in Terminator 3, we had a great villain. We had a new robot that was pretty cool. Arnold Schwarzenegger was still acting the same, and it had actually it had a plot that made sense towards the whole franchise. While Terminator Genesis just tried to mix up all the things that we've seen in the previous films and make something new. Well, it didn't work. It was actually pretty terrible, and everyone wants to keep that off their mind. I'm continuing with the rest of my time.
All right. So we have Michael with Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, Eros with Genesis. Again, it is up to us, the judges, to figure out what movie should actually be erased. Kevin, I got a quick question for you. Are you a Terminator guy?
I am an early Terminator guy.
Okay, good answer. So I'm going to go to you first. Which one of these gentlemen won you over?
I'll start with Michael and go in order. So with 3, I agree with you 100% that it was a huge missed opportunity after 1 and 2. I do not like how they just ditched Linda Hamilton. And also I agree with you that wouldn't change anything by removing Genesis. Like Genesis would be gone anyway. Eros, as far as bad movies, this movie is bad. You're right. It was a downward franchise, and this didn't help. But I agree with you on the fact that Rise did intro some new machines, which was cool. But I feel like in this sort of fight, you really shouldn't point out the other person or your own movie's plot hole. So what you did. So this was close, but with Rise coming right after 1 and 2, I'm going to give this point to Michael.
All right, and with that, we have erased Eros from the face of the earth.
Yep.
Kevin, why would you do such a thing?
Kevin was so evil towards Eros, he ran away.
Okay, well, we'll keep going just a little bit because we don't need them right now. This is moving on to mine. Again, this was another great debate. Michael, I think you were leaning a little too much on the side of if you erase Terminator 3, the other movies don't happen. So that's why that's the correct answer. But really, it's you can only erase one. All the other ones are still there. And I think Eros did a good job of rebuting that kind of right at the beginning. So I'm leaning a little bit more to Eros on that. So I'm going to give him my votes. So Tony, we are all tied up. Who gets the point? You're breaking the tie.
As someone that's not a Terminator fan, this is a difficult question because my answer would be all of them apart from part 2. However, the one that I think was the most coherent, the one that was the most like, oh yeah, I can understand why this one shouldn't be there for the whole sake of the arc of the whole franchise, was Michael with Terminator 3. He explained why that was the more important, why that was the most drop ball opportunity, why it could have been so much better, and everything like that. Whereas Eros, he was saying how it was a terrible film, but he even admitted that it was because of Terminator 3 and 4, that his was going to be a bit more weaker. So it's like the building blocks are already gone in a sense.
Okay. And so with that, Michael, you break the tie, you get the point. And Michael, you are up 2-0. So we're moving on to question 3. Michael, this is your chance to win the game. Eros, this is a must-get point for you. Question 3 is as follows. What is the best drama starring Denzel Washington? Okay. Eros, since we started with you for question 2, we're going to go to Michael for this one. So, Michael, you get 90-second opening. Time starts when you start talking.
So I'm going with 2001's Training Day, a film that won Denzel Washington an Oscar. I'm going to keep this as a fairly brief introduction to what I think and get more into it in the face-to-face if I can. But basically, this is a really, really clever crime drama told throughout one night, which is kind of awesome. I love it when films are just done in a very certain time period. Really clever screenplay with a couple of knockout performances, obviously from Washington, also from Ethan Hawke. Just one more solid crime drama. Crime dramas can be really murky and turgid and predictable. Like this one is very unpredictable. It keeps you on your toes. And it's really commendable screenplay, really commendable direction. Training Day. Conceding time.
All right. So, Michael, going with Training Day. All right. And Eros, it is your turn for your 90-second opening. What is the best drama starring Denzel Washington? Time starts when you start talking.
I chose Malcolm X, which is actually the film that kind of started his whole career and introduced him as a A-class actor. Malcolm X, not only does he deliver his best performance, the film itself, Malcolm X, is so good. It's a film that it's the perfect biopic that works perfectly and shows a vision of a director who just made some incredible films like Do the Right Thing, and then he matches itself with Malcolm X, where he explains his whole point of view on the Black lives in America and everything. And not only was the performance from Denzel Washington incredible in that film, but the film also is a landmark in cinema and should be seen by everyone. It's an instant classic. It's a film. It's a film that should be taught at schools everywhere. It's a film that people will remember for the rest of their lives. It's an important film, and what Denzel Washington did in this film was just incredible. He was the right face, the perfect guy to play the role. He looked like him. He had the charisma of Malcolm X. He had everything Malcolm X had in real life, and he played that perfectly. And I think that's why I chose that film to be my favorite one, and I'm conceding my time.
All right, so we have Michael with Training Day and Eros with Malcolm X. And just to clarify, this is Malcolm X, the movie with Denzel Washington, and not our favorite Australian's Malcolm's striptease video, because those are two very different movies. All right,
why would you put that evil in the world? Why? Why have you made me think of that? You're an evil, evil man.
No one cares, Tony. Malcolm, if you're watching, I had to make that joke. Anyways, Training Day versus Malcolm X. 5-minute freeform debate. Time starts when you start talking.
So one of the things I'll just sort of go to immediately is what I'm always a big fan of films that start from scratch, by which I mean it's not got anything. Your biopics obviously can be very commendably impressive. There are certainly some good points to Malcolm X, but it is there for Spike Lee, it is there for Denzel Washington. They have the story, they have the person, they can kind of do it, go through what they need to go through and tell it as they need to do. Training Day for me is more impressive because not only is it a story built from scratch, it's not based on a book or a life or anything, it's a completely original story. Also, Denzel, therefore, is playing a completely original character and has to create something totally from scratch. And to do that is always, for me, a much more impressive thing to do. when you get someone like Alfonso who ends up on AFI's top villains list, it's an incredible thing to do from scratch. Malcolm X, is obviously a very key political figure in history, certainly for the time period that he was in. But thus, the film is there, the performance is there for Denzel I don't want to say copy, but the ground, again, going back to a phrase I used earlier, the groundwork is there for him already.
The thing still is, we're asking about the better film he's in, not his better performance, which even there I could argue with you with Malcolm X versus Training Day, but still, the film Malcolm X is no way near as bad as Training Day. Training Day is a good film, but it's nowhere near as good as Malcolm X. Sorry if I just shifted out around, but Training Day, I mean, Denzel is the best part of the film, and he's actually the reason why the film is alive, because the film otherwise, it isn't really good. It's actually it's an obvious film. You can actually predict everything that's actually going to happen. The characters, I mean, you don't really care much about the characters besides Denzel, besides the character that Denzel's play. And in Malcolm X, I mean, it is a biopic, but it's a biopic that actually kind of contributed to most biopics getting made now, because that one succeeded so well. And it was actually, it was rare to see a film that big coming out of the spotlight and introducing us to a whole new genre. While Training Days, it's still a concept we've seen in other films. It's a bad cop. He's acting all dangerous and all, but he's a bad cop after all. And since start, you get that feeling. He's always bad. And at the end, you get, he's actually really, really bad.
So I appreciate what you say. I was actually saying that it was the performance and the film that were both to be commended for coming up from that sort of start from scratch basis. I would say I didn't predict Training Day. I would say if you could, fair play, you might just be a lot smarter than me. I think it is actually a very clever story. I think it's really interesting the way the characters react to each other. They're all very consistent within the film. And to be honest, Malcolm X being a biopic in its nature can be a predictable film. If you know about Malcolm X's life, you are just waiting for the certain but the certain points of the film to come up, and you're sort of waiting for certain things to happen anyway.
They don't just come up. They're great. They're amazing. They come up surprising because, yes, people heard about Malcolm X, but this film even embraced him even more. I mean, his vision in Spike Lee's version in Do the Right Thing was mostly based on the character Malcolm X itself. But you already see that he had a whole idea. He was, even with the ending, you could see that he was actually heading right towards Malcolm X's manner of reacting towards the Black lives. And in that film, he not only did he actually explain all of his point of view of the character itself, he actually made him an icon and legend, even bigger than he was before. Because
but Malcolm X was already an icon and a legend.
He was. But this bring him up even more. It's like when you make a film like Bohemian Rhapsody. I mean, yes, Freddie Mercury is known and everything, but the film, it brings up someone even more. The person gets even more popular towards that year. Like you always get those people behind in your mind. Like you always remember those people. But once there's a film about them, you remember it even more because it's in the present. It's in the present moment. And that film, it wasn't bad. It didn't give him a bad point of view about Malcolm X. It gave a great point of view. It explained everything. It's about hatred. It's about racism. It's about everything. And Denzel's performance in that one could be known as one of the greatest performances we've ever seen on screen. And it started his whole career. That film was one of his newer projects that bring him to the spotlight. And that film gave it all.
Firstly, this is a super small point. I think Glory came a couple of years earlier, and that was his first Oscar. So I think he was already known. But also, yeah, I get the idea that you can make a legend more of a legend in film, but to make a legend just because of film, like I said, Denzel's Alfonso Captain Training Day on the AFI villains list, not because he was someone that we already knew. He came from that film. The film made that character famous.
Time. All right. So now we are moving into the closings. Eros, you're going to start us off with a closing. And remember, this is a must-need point for you. So 60 seconds. And again, the question, what is the best drama starring Denzel Washington? So which is the better movie? You have 60 seconds to tell us why your answer is the correct answer. Time starts when you start talking.
For me, a film is not just for the actor or the performance itself. It's for everything that's in it. The score, the plot, the cinematography, everything, which in this case, Malcolm X was far more superior than Training Day, which Training Day is a film that literally revolves just around a performance. The performance makes the film great. The story, we've already seen it before. The performance, it's something new. But even there, it's only because of Denzel that the films work. And even this performance, if you had put any other actor than Denzel, the film wouldn't work. So the film itself isn't really good. It's all relying on Denzel's performance. While Malcolm X, you could have added another actor. Sure, he was incredible. He gave an excellent performance. But the thing is, Malcolm X, the film itself, was even better than the performance that Denzel Washington bring out. The film itself was a landmark to Spike Lee, one of the greatest director known to man right now. And that film, it explained his whole point of view of cinema in general and culture in general, everything. He gave it all in that film, and that's why that film is way better than Training Day.
Time. All right. As Michael, as you're coming back on here, 60 seconds to tell us why Training Day is better than Malcolm X. 60 seconds to close it. Time starts when you start talking.
So as I said before, Malcolm X, the groundwork is there already. I know I say that a lot in this match, the groundwork's there, but it was, Spike Lee took someone whose life existed, translated it to film. Fair enough. That isn't as easy as I'm making it sound, but that isn't as it's more difficult to start something completely from new, to just take an idea, flesh out a story, flesh out characters, and then as an actor to bring that character to life. I'm not just saying it's because of the actor. I'm saying the actor is part of the great story that was created from scratch. And within that, the actor creating a character from scratch is so much more interesting. Training Day is an interesting story. The characters are all very consistently written. They do interesting things. The story takes interesting turns. Fair play if you could predict it. I don't think it is an easily predictable film. I think it takes interesting turns, unlikely turns, and feels genuine while they're doing it. Where's my...
All right, time. All right. So now we are bringing everyone back in because, again, this is about the judges, who they pick to win. And since this question is about Denzel Washington, we have to say it. Denzel Washington, yay!
Yay!
All right. So I'm going to start this one off because that's the rotation. This was another great one, guys. Y'all both did really good. Again, going back to the question, what is the best drama? So which of these movies is better? There's a lot of talk about the performance, but not a ton on why the movie was better. For one of y'all, I'm going to have to give my points, and again, a very slight edge. This was back and forth. I'm going to have to give my point to Eros. That biggest thing that pulled me into your favor, or pulled you into my favor. English is hard, guys. I'm sorry. Was whenever you said, you could take anyone and put into Denzel Washington's role in Training Day, and it stays, the same quality of movie. Whereas Malcolm X, that's his movie, and he really brought it to life. Even though it is a biopic, Mike, what you were trying to hit, I'm leaning just slightly over to Eros. But it's not just me making choices. We do have two others. Tony, you're next. Who is getting your point and why?
Yep. So just quickly do a bit of double checking because Michael mentioned this. Glory did come out in 1989, whereas Malcolm X was 1992. So Glory, so he did get that Oscar nomination first prior to Malcolm X. But this was really an interesting conversation of what's the more important. Well, what's better? Is it original screenplay or an adapted screenplay? Which was very interesting debate that was going on there. And I'm going to side with Michael at this time because I believe he gave more of an understanding of why Training Day was a better movie in the grand scheme of things, like why the twist was more important and everything like that. And it's like, well, Malcolm X is a fantastic movie. It's just the way that Eros was arguing it. I didn't like, there was a few more holes in it, I felt, than the presentation that was given.
Best drama starring Denzel Washington. We had Training Day or Malcolm X. Kevin, it's your job to tell us who gets this point.
No
And I'm not going to give you any more pressure. Don't worry. Michael's not going to get the win. Eros isn't going to lose depending on who votes. So no pressure at all.
No pressure here. All right, so I'll start with Michael. First off, I want to apologize for my technical difficulties. I didn't mean to interrupt your talking. I know how that can throw you off. But I will say, Training Day. I agree with you. The one night story, the cleverness, the way it keeps you on your toes, how it's a story from scratch versus a biopic. That is something that could be debated probably until the end of time. But I felt like maybe coming into this question up 2-0, you felt a little comfortable. Yes, Malcolm X. It is. You said it was a simple story. I disagree with you 100% there. Yeah, if you know the story, you could, if you have a history book, you could plot it out. But Spike Lee did a wonderful job, as Eros pointed out. And I don't know that anybody could have done it better. He pointed that out. He pointed out how Denzel. I don't know that anybody could have done that job better. His charisma. It should be taught in schools. The point goes to Eros, and we keep going.
And with that, Eros, you get the point. You avoid the knockout.
Yeah, hopefully.
No, you avoid the knockout, regardless of what happens. So now we are moving on to question 4. Question 4, what is the worst year for animated movies? And we're kicking everybody out that doesn't need to be here. So what is the worst year for animated movies? Since we started with Michael on the last one, Eros, it is your turn to start us off with your 90-second opening. And time starts when you start talking.
The worst year for animated films is easily 2001, because it's not only is an animated film mostly made for children, it's still made for the whole audience, but it's aimed towards children. And I think every single child on Earth lost one of their greatest treasure, which was Cars, while they made the sequel Cars 2, which everyone hated. Even the young people hated it. It was just horrible. And also we got some of the most annoying films known to man. Alvin and the Chipmunks, a sequel where they actually on the cruise or anything. It's horrible. I've seen it. I don't want you guys to see it, but for those of you who have seen it will understand my point. Also, we get some horrible live action / animation films from Smurfs, which was also just horrible and terrifying to watch. We also had Hop, which was just a film that it fell wrong and was still a live action / animation film. We also had Romeo and Juliet, which tried to introduce us to a whole new 3D to a whole new animation system, but the story whatsoever was goddamn horrible. We also got one of films one of the most easiest forgettable film that has came out, Mars Need Moms, which is also known for being one of the biggest bombs in Hollywood, and it deserves to be a bomb because it's really horrible. Plus, we got Puss in the Boots, which was also a landmark character that they just shoved inside of Cash
Time. All right. Michael, it is your turn. What is the worst year for animated movies? We're going to give you the same 90-second opening. Please tell us what your answer is. Time starts when you start talking.
So I am going to say the year 2017, which was not just sort of a bad year for animation. It was just, frankly, the year that animation just sold out. It became no longer an art form. It just became a way to sell other products, a lazy cash grab. yeah, completely devoid of ideas. Obviously, the main one I'm talking about is the Emoji Movie, which isn't a movie at all. It's just a product placement after product placement. No reasonable artistic value to exist other than sell products. But I also extend that actually to the Lego films that came out that year. The Lego Movie is this great, from 2014, is this great creative, has so much creative freedom. It's one of the sort of groundbreaking animated films. In 2017, they released Lego Batman, which is just trying to sell Warner Brothers films, the Batman properties, the Joker properties, all these other characters appear, Voldemort, King Kong. They're just selling Warner Brothers properties. Lego Ninjago is just to revive the Ninjago property of Lego, which was dying at the time. No creative reason to exist. Then you've got other Ferdinand, terrible film, which somehow got an Oscar nomination. The Boss Baby, somehow got an Oscar. So the Oscars were also selling out at this point. They're just giving any old trash a nomination for no good reason. The Boss Baby is essentially just a veiled political statement. I'm no Trump fan, but that film is just existing to say I don't like Trump. It is an immature movie. There's just no creative necessity.
Time's up. All right. So now we're moving on to that 5-minute debate. What is the worst year for animated movies? Was it 2011 or was it 2017? Question 4. We got 5 minutes. Time starts when y'all start.
Well, I'm just going to jump straight in. Hop is a live-action film with an animated character. Alvin and the Chipmunks is a live-action film with animated characters.
It's an animated film. It is. The character itself, it's considered animation. If your character, I mean, you can even look at...
Well, then, so the Marvel Cinematic Universe is an animated franchise.
That's then. CGI. It's not the same thing.
It's literally the same thing.
It's CGI, but
it's computer-generated imagery. The Chipmunks and Alvin and the Chipmunks are computer-generated imagery.
Wait, could someone look it up? Because I'm sure that Hop is actually an animated film. I mean,
Hop might be, sorry, but certainly Alvin and the Chipmunks is a live-action film with a CGI character.
It's an animated film too. It's the same category. Where would you rank it? Where would you? Well, could we just stop the thing? Because I mean, it's realistically, aren't we driving you away from the question actually? Because I mean, like, can someone look up on the internet if they are, or do we just continue?
Going. I'm looking it up right now. Can y'all hear me?
Okay, so did the timer stop or anything?
Go ahead and keep going. Okay. I'm going to fact check it. Just keep going.
Okay, perfect. Well, yeah.
Okay, so well, take that out then. Let's I definitely think Alvin and Chipmunks podcast. I might be wrong on Hop, if so, I apologize. Even so, yeah, okay, 2011 had some, I would say at best, forgettable. I don't think Cars 2 is as bad to make out. It's forgettable. It's still got nice animation. It's still got interesting characters. It's just a bit of a forgettable story. Yeah, and there are some interesting things, like you said about, we haven't mentioned Rango, which was a really interesting style of animation that came out in 2011.
Rango is really good. Rango is really good, but Rango isn't as far as good as Coco was, or even Loving Vincent, or even the 90s Short Walk on Girl, or even Worlds of Tomorrow 2. Those were incredible films. Those are landmark animation films that were released all in 2017, while my year only had to offer Rango, which is basically not even a high standout. It's just a good film that most people will tend to forget. And even there, on my point, I mean, you did say Alvin and Chipmunks and Hop. I think they're animated, but even if you leave them aside, I still have some worse films than yours. I have Rio, I have Cars 2, I have Puss in the Boots, I have Smurfs, I have Gnomeo and Juliet, I have Mars Needs Moms. I mean, you do have some bad films, but what do you have? I mean, some terrible films. You have Emoji Movie. That's basically it. I mean, your other films, they're mediocre, but they're no way near as bad as the films that were released in my year. Plus, that's even excluding Alvin and the Chipmunks and Hoop, which I think are even worse than Emoji Movie. And also your year, I mean, Smurfs, I did say it's really bad, but your year, it tried to revive Smurfs, and it actually didn't do a bad job. The Lost Village was actually way better, and was an improvement. Some people actually loved it, while some people hated the Smurf series, but that one was actually more praised. Also, I mean, in your year, Batman Lego, even though it's a cash grab, the film was actually really good, and it made fun of the whole superhero genre and introduced us something really original, some self-jokes that actually kind of influenced Shazam to be made, because Shazam is basically just making fun of the whole superhero genre, and you just get a whole new live action film from a Lego movie. That's pretty insane. Plus Coco, it introduced us to the whole Hispanic Hispanic people shown in the movies, and did it in the landmark film that is going to be known for generations, because that's
so the thing though is even Coco started life as a cash grab, because there's this whole thing about Disney tried to trademark the Festival of the Dead. That it comes from a dark soul. Going through some of the points you've made, Rio is actually quite a fun, colourful film. Puss in Boots is it's a nice time at the cinema. This is nothing special, but it's at worst forgettable. The Emoji Movie is clearly worse. It's got, I'm pretty sure that's the lowest IMDb score, the worst Metascore. It's got like 20 something, if that, on Metascore. It's got 3 point something on IMDb, maybe. Lego Batman isn't that good. Batman doing beatboxing and all this efforts to make him cool. It's just silly and immature, and it's really annoying.
Not so good.
And it is a cash grab.
You may have,
as you said, it is just a cash grab.
But the best films in my year are not so good films. In your
Rango is a really interesting animation style. The Adventures of Tintin is a really interesting animation style. They're both interesting, exciting, vibrant films.
Best Winner was really good. You have one of the films who's known as being one of the greatest short animated films, In a Heartbeat, who showed something original. You still have Night is Short, Walk on Girl, which is going to be a landmark. World of Tomorrow, who are a small series. The second one was still an excellent follow up to the first, and included Time.
Okay. I am going to go ahead and say it. I am looking up Alvin and the Chipmunks. Chipwrecked is the name of the movie. Came out in 2011. IMDb considers it an adventure movie, a comedy movie, and an animation movie. So we are accepting it as an animation movie. I realize IMDb is not 100% accurate, but it says it's animation, so we're still going to take it. So, with that, we're moving on to the closing. Michael, you have 60 seconds to tell us why 2017 is the correct answer. Time starts when you start talking.
So 2011 actually does have some good animated films. Rango and The Adventure of Tintin are standouts, and not only because of the good storytelling there, but they are interesting styles of animation. And what were some of the worst films that came out there? Like Romeo and Juliet, maybe it's not a good film, but at least it comes from the heart of entertaining. The Emoji Movie barely cares about entertaining again. It just wants to sell something else entirely. It has no artistic value. The Lego films, just want to sell other things. They have no artistic value. Coco, even the best film of my ever, it comes from a soulless place. It comes from the background of Disney trying to essentially trademark a historic festival of the Mexican culture is steeped in. It was a heartless year. It was a year that animation just sold itself out, and it's littered with bad films. I haven't barely had enough time to talk about Ferdinand and Boss Baby, and how I mentioned Boss Baby is also a soulless. It's just trying to veil politics into children's lives. There's no heart to this year.
Time. All right, Eros, you're closing out. Question 4. 60 seconds. Tell us why 2011 is the worst year for animated movies and not 2017.
All right. 2011. I mean, we got some sequels that were long awaited, and they just killed the whole audience, kids and parents and everything. Cars 2 was horrible. Rio was a new introduction that was really, really bad. Puss in the Boots was known as one of the cutest characters. He was a landmark. He was beloved by everyone in Shrek. And then afterwards, they just put him in such a forgettable film. And that film even got nominated for an Oscar. So I think it's way, way, way more upsetting to see Puss in the Boots getting nominated for an Oscar. Also, we got Smurfs, which was an horrendous film. Everyone hated it. It was just horrible. Romeo and Juliet, they tried to do something good. My point is, they advertised their film as some really good films that were about to come out, but they didn't deliver anything. They were just disappointing. They were terrible. Also, we got Mars Needs Moms, who was one of the biggest bombs. This year was basically the year of bombs for animated films. So if 2012 wasn't as good as it was, animated films would have basically died, because that year not only did they bomb, but they made terrible project that killed every single fans.
Time. All right. So now we are going to bring everyone back up for the judging. I did have a couple fact checks. The biggest two was that Alvin and the Chipmunks is animated. Smurfs also, that was brought up. Pretty much same thing. It's technically considered animated. I did also look up the Emoji Movie as a 7% Rotten Tomato score. So not the lowest ever given, but it's down there. And then 12% Metacritic. And I believe it was also like the first movie in like 50 plus years shown in a movie theater in Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia, I'm sorry. Not the right movie to show, but whoever's idea that was should have gotten fired or
out of a cannon,
erased off of the face of the earth, something like that.
You know, they were probably really excited about it too.
Yeah.
It's the greatest movie they've ever seen in the cinema.
Poor people. Right.
All right. So, Tony, you are starting this off. Who gets your point and why?
Right. It's always a difficult one to argue because it's a lot falling down to personal preference almost. Because it's like, oh, this is bad, that's bad. Whereas I'm gonna firstly, both in sort of films that I really like. For example, The Smurfs is actually a really good watch. I'll fight anyone that says otherwise. But what I'm going to go for is that because you both were Eros at the end, he was arguing about like how it was like the nearly collapse of animation, whereas Michael all the way through was discussing the selling out. So I'm going to go with Michael on that because I think that argument of this was when the whole 2017 was when it all started to like the cash flow, and it wasn't about the artistic value anymore. It was more about the commercial value. That was much more of a compelling argument than what Eros was able to produce.
All right. So first vote goes to Michael. Kevin, it is your turn now. Tell us who gets your point and why.
Okay. I will start with Eros, just going in order of years. With Cars 2, I agree with you. It did ruin Cars. The Alvin and the Chipmunks movie, I didn't see the Chipwrecked one, but the first one was bad enough. The Puss in Boots movie, it did ruin that character. I feel like like you said, it was, you made good points about it being a year of it was kind of like the start of the cash grab, kind of like what can we use to make a little bit of extra money on the side here. Now moving on, saying that to 2017 and Michael, we've moved to an entirely different level. The Lego Batman movie and every other Lego Ninjago and all that other crap. Those are just ridiculous. The Emoji Movie, that was stupid. I actually like the Romeo and Juliet movie. The Boss Baby movie, don't even get me started about that. So I have to agree and go with Michael on this one too.
So that'll be two votes for Michael.
Yep. And your winner, Michael. So Michael, if my reading skills are correct, you are moving on to the next round of this tournament, and I believe you are playing one Nicholas Tuig. How are you feeling about playing against Nick?
Firstly, obviously pleased because it's good to be in the tournament. Secondly, if we're assuming that the tournament is going to be harder than the playoff, then that is a concern because I thought Eros was very, very good today, and that if Eros can't qualify in the tournament, then that doesn't bode well for anything going forward because I thought he did a very good job today, and that means we've got even more difficult people on the horizon, that's not a good thing. I look forward to Nicholas. I don't think I've ever played him in anything before, so that'll be lots of fun. So yeah, pleased, nervous, bit both.
All right. And then Eros, you weren't able to come out with the win, but you did a fantastic job today. How are you feeling about your performance?
Well, I mean, I think it's my performance is it's always the same. I think I'm starting to learn it a little bit more, but I'm always going with personal choices over actual some decent choices, and I think it's actually killing me, and I should maybe move towards. But I think even with my personal choices, I couldn't defeat Michael because he was really good. He kept defending his point, and he focused his time attacking me, so I always had to defend myself, and I didn't have time to attack him back. So I think he did a really good job countering me. And yeah, I think I'm not mad about my performance. I think it's pretty good, but I think I should maybe move towards more some logical takes rather than personal takes.
All right. Most important question. I mean, we're not going to see you for a while because we are in the middle of this tournament. But post-tournament, are you looking at coming back?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if I have time, of course. Yeah, it's always a fun time doing the show with you guys. So yeah, of course.
All right. And is there anyone in particular you're looking at facing?
Sorry?
Is there anyone in particular you're wanting to face or excited to face or?
I mean, I'd actually love to face Cody. I mean, he's a legend. He's really good. I mean, I have losses and everything, and I'm new, but I really want to be against him, so this way I can have I can be versus a pro. So I learn from the best. So if ever I can squeeze a point in that, I'll be really glad, and I think it's gonna improve my skills and everything. And I mean, I like his style. He's always so mad and everything at arguments, so I think it would be really fun.
All right, so Eros, either wanting Cody to lose this tournament or get a title shot out of nowhere. Let's see which one happens. Both pretty likely. Maybe. I don't know. I don't run this thing, so.
We don't know how much it bribes are.
Tony, this was a great match. How are you feeling after this?
Yeah, it was a fantastic match. I think both of them brought everything to the table, and it was really a game of minimal differences. The scoreline doesn't really tell the true story. It was very close for every single question. It could have swung either way for just literally one sentence or just 1 second of inspiration. But the match coming up, Michael versus Nick Tuig, that is going to be an incredible match. Nick Tuig has built a reputation recently in the fan leagues of being one of the funniest people, and he's so intelligent with that as well. Michael proved it here. He's proved it many times before. He's very smart and very pointed with his arguments. That is going to be an absolute cracker.
Definitely, and nothing's to be more embarrassing than if I actually misread it. And Michael, you are not facing Nick, but I'm pretty sure that's what's happening. Now we're moving on to Kevin. Same question, man. How are you feeling after this?
Well, for it being my first time, I feel really well. You guys did great. I feel like you guys brought it all to the table. Eros, you did wonderful. Michael also did wonderful. Congratulations. Good luck in the tournament. Good luck.
Sorry.
But yeah, I just wanted to say good luck against Nick. I faced him in Full Metal Random, and he is hilarious. But he's intelligent, and he brings it to the table too. So bring your all.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And with that, I have been your host, Jacob. That was Eros and Michael and Tony and Kevin. Keep watching the rest of the tournament. And this is where I say something clever.
Something clever.